10. Alexandra Chichi. In 2019, the Metro Nashville Police Department in Tennessee responded to a call for a disturbance that took place in an Airbnb rental home. When they arrived, 29-year-old Alexandra Chichi was on the front steps. Her foot was bleeding and she was heavily intoxicated. She told officers she was visiting from New Jersey for a bachelorette party. She drank 2 bottles of wine and, in her words, went psycho. Chichi allegedly had a hard time communicating because of how drunk she was, but it seemed as though she couldn't get into the house, so she kicked through the windows with her bare feet. The home's front windows were completely broken, and a few items inside were damaged, including a lamp, a chair, and some blinds. Police told the local news station WKRN that the house was in rough shape, with furniture thrown everywhere and a coffee table flipped over. The damages were nearly $1,900. After getting treated for her injured foot, Chichi was arrested on a felony vandalism charge. 9. Rachel Friedman. Rachel Friedman and some of her friends had just gotten home after her bachelorette party in 2010 when things took an unexpected turn for the worst. In a freak accident, a friend quickly pushed the 25-year-old future bride into the shallow end of her family's pool, causing her to smack against the cement bottom and crack one of her vertebrae. Friedman instantly knew something was wrong because she couldn't move a muscle. The life-changing accident left her paralyzed from the chest down. Her fiancé, Chris Chapman, thankfully stood by her through the ordeal. They postponed their wedding to focus on her recovery but still married in 2011. The girl that pushed Friedman into the pool was a bridesmaid in the ceremony. In an interview with Today, Friedman described her accident as something that happened to both of them, not just her. She had no bad feelings toward her friend, who apparently struggled to come to terms with her guilt from the situation. Friedman and her husband have been married for over 10 years and now have a daughter, who was the flower girl last year when they renewed their vows. Unfortunately, none of Friedman's original bridesmaids were there. By then, she and the friend who pushed had naturally drifted apart and gone their separate ways. Thankfully, her marriage is now going strong even after people assumed Chapman would leave her after she got her injuries. Today, Friedman's mental and physical health have come a long way since that fateful day. 8. Sterling Joseph B. Croft. A group of women were holding a bachelorette party at an Oklahoma City nightclub back in 2009 when some men approached them. The ladies made it clear that they weren't interested in anything they wanted. Not long after, a female customer that was not attending the party allegedly started pushing members of the bachelorette group around. A man at the club then stepped in and started assaulting a random person at the party, wrapping his hands around her neck and shoving her face into a wall. According to the police report, 27-year-old future bride Emily Cunningham was punched in the face during the fight. Her friend tried to help her and was also smacked in the face with a beer bottle. Police were called to the scene and charged the male suspect, 27-year-old Sterling Joseph B. Croft, with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. 7. Siali. Staff members at a Holiday Inn bar in Wilsonville, Oregon asked a customer named Siali to leave one night in 2015 after a bachelorette party complained about his behavior. Instead of leaving politely, Siali supposedly went on a rampage and started throwing furniture. Witnesses said he threw chairs at the bartender during his little tantrum, causing thousands of dollars worth of damage. Surveillance footage of the terrifying act shows the bartender ducking and barely avoiding a chair as it flew in her direction. In a 911 recording, a panicked caller said Siali didn't have any weapons but was going psycho and scaring customers. After destroying everything he wanted, the suspect left. Police luckily caught up to him and charged him with criminal mischief, interfering with making a report, criminal trespassing, and disorderly conduct. Ruining a bachelorette party should be on that list too. 6. Long Island limo tragedy. Instead of having a designated driver, a bride-to-be from New York and 7 of her close friends were enjoying a girls' day together in a limo before the wedding. They'd recently left a winery on Long Island's North Fork, and the driver was trying to make a U-turn when it suddenly was T-boned by a pickup truck. 4 of the women died in the crash, while the others, including the bride, survived but with critical injuries. The limo driver also lived. A local police chief told the Associated Press it was one of the worst accidents he'd ever seen. The truck nearly cut the limousine in half, and the driver, Stephen Romeo, was arrested on drunk driving charges. He reportedly admitted that he had a few drinks before getting behind the wheel. Romeo pleaded guilty and was ordered to pay only a $500 fine. He also lost his license for 90 days but managed to avoid any jail time. Prosecutors also blamed the limo driver, Carlos Pino, for the tragic accident. They accused him of making a U-turn without stopping and said he failed to take any precaution or action to make sure he could safely enter the westbound traffic lanes. He was indicted on multiple counts of criminally negligent homicide and some other crimes, but a judge ended up dropping the charges based on an improper grand jury testimony. It wasn't an easy decision for the judge, who said he agonized more over the decision than any other case in his 20-year career. The victims' families were outraged, and the prosecutor said he'd appealed the case, but it doesn't seem like that ever happened. In the meantime, the 4 surviving women filed civil lawsuits against Pino. After the tragedy, a special grand jury called for stricter regulations on stretch limousines. A lengthy report on the matter noted factory-made stretch limos are already held to high safety standards, but safety features can sometimes be removed from cars if they're converted into limos. The findings also showed that some companies have faked their DMV limo paperwork to avoid stricter inspections. 5. Hellacious hotel gathering. A bachelorette party hosted at a New Jersey hotel almost ended in tragedy last year when someone pulled a gun out and fired it multiple times, leaving some people injured. 2 rooms have been rented out at the Delta Suites Hotel in Woodbridge for a fairly large gathering, according to staff members. But out of nowhere, bullets started flying left and right, striking at least 4 people. The victims all survived, but some of their injuries and the trauma from that night will stick with them for the rest of their lives. A guest who was staying in a nearby room when the shooting went down told NBC New York that she woke up to the sound of gunfire and ran for cover, scared for her life. The motive behind the crime is unknown, but police arrested 4 male partygoers a few days after the shooting on suspicion of weapons charges and more offenses. 4. Colette Moreno. In 2014, 26-year-old Colette Moreno was driving to her bachelorette party in Missouri with her best friend Ashley Theobald when they decided to take a selfie to remember the exciting occasion. It was the last picture they would ever take together. Just minutes after, fumes from the truck in front of them started to irritate Moreno's asthma and make it act up. There was a double yellow line in the middle of the road, which meant it was against the law for them to pass, but by then Moreno was coughing and her eyes were tearing up. She needed to get away from the fumes as quickly as possible. Because she couldn't see very well, Ashley looked out the window and saw that it seemed clear to pass. As Moreno quickly tried passing the truck and moving her car back into the right lane, a pickup truck came from the oncoming direction out of nowhere. It had come up a slight hill that was hard to see from Moreno's perspective, which is probably why the yellow lines were there in the first place. The 2 vehicles collided head-on. Ashley survived and Moreno was rushed to the hospital. Sadly, she didn't make it. Many people mistakenly believe that the selfie the woman took while driving caused the crash. The photo was snapped just a few minutes before the accident and had nothing to do with it, but news outlets took the story and ran with it anyway. Many people online expressed a disturbing lack of sympathy towards the girls. Regardless of what led up to the horrific crash, it's undeniably heartbreaking that Moreno would never make it down the aisle. She also left behind a 5-year-old son who must now live life without his mum. 3. Bachelorette party burglar. Earlier this year, Michelle Johnson and some friends flew from Houston to Nashville to celebrate her engagement. After a night out in Music City, the woman called an Uber to help drive them to their Airbnb rental. When the car pulled up, one of the girls rushed into the house ahead of the group because she really had to use the bathroom. She was frightened after hearing footsteps coming from one of the 3-story home's higher levels, since she knew none of her friends could be up there. The worried girl took a head count of her friend group and confirmed that everyone was in the kitchen making their pizza rolls. At that point, she knew something was wrong and told the other ladies, who then realized the glass door leading to the backyard had been shattered. They ran outside and called the police, who told local news station WGNO that they'd gotten many calls this year about people breaking into Airbnb properties, and that it's a popular crime among repeat offenders. Officers couldn't catch the thief though, who managed to get away with a laptop. To avoid attracting intruders, the Metro Nashville Police Department warned visitors from out of town who rent with Airbnb not to put any decorations outside the home or on their vehicles. Johnson realized that it was pretty easy to tell the group was in town for a bachelorette party. She said she was just glad nobody got hurt, and even received a partial refund from Airbnb for her troubles. 2. A suspicious setup. A TikToker named Callie Bryant at Callie.Bryant and her friends expected to have a fun time when they traveled to Austin, Texas earlier this year for a bachelorette party. But something didn't seem right when they got to their rental home that they booked through Vrbo. On the first night of their stay, the woman noticed the alarm system was dead and none of the doors in the home locked. They contacted the rental's owner but didn't get a response. A little later, someone went on the rental site to see if any previous renters left information on how to use the locks or security system, only to find out the listing had been taken down. Fearing that they might be getting set up for a robbery or maybe something worse, the group decided to play it safe and go to a hotel. In a series of TikTok videos about the experience, Brian said another group member booked the property for the party. At the time, it had 19 reviews and seemed perfectly legit, leaving the girls with no reason to think they might be put in danger by staying at the rental. The friend who booked the house met up with the owner, who showed her how to enter the security's gate passcode outside the house. She supposedly said that since the front gate would be locked, the guests didn't need a house key. At the time, this didn't strike the renter as strange, but looking back, it was a pretty big red flag. A Vrbo spokesperson said that the company tried repeatedly to reach the woman who booked the room but received no response. Bryant claimed the group called Vrbo the night things got weird and left a voicemail because they couldn't get through to speak to a customer service representative. 1. Nerissa Forjas. In 2013, 31-year-old bride-to-be Nerissa Forjas rented a limo for her bachelorette party. She and 8 gal pals were riding in style across the 7-mile, 11-kilometer San Mateo Hayward Bridge over the San Francisco Bay when the car suddenly caught on fire. 4 of the party members and the driver were able to escape, but Forjas and her 4 other friends tragically died as the limo went up into flames. Roxanne Guzman, who was traveling over the bridge during the freak tragedy, told CNN that the flames were so massive she could feel the heat on her face from inside the car. She remembered seeing the survivors on the roadside in what looked like a state of shock while they waited for emergency responders to get to the scene. Several of them were crying. By the time police got there, the back of the limo was fully on fire, and there was nothing they could do to save the women inside. The driver was unhurt, but the other 4 women received medical treatment for smoke inhalation, while authorities tried to find out what caused the sudden blaze, which seemed to have started in the trunk. They determined the vehicle suspension system failed, and that friction between the rear drive shaft and the floor pan caused the carpet and foam padding to ignite. During police interviews, the survivors said the temperature inside the car had gotten noticeably hot, and that they'd asked the driver to turn up the air conditioning before the incident. The fire was ruled an accident, and no charges were brought against the limo driver, who officials concluded could not have known what would happen. And while the suspension system was faulty, the limo company also faced no charges. Thanks for watching. Do you have any crazy bachelorette party stories? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.